Okay, everyone. Good morning. Christmas Eve. John, are you feeling festive? I asked Ryan on Monday, and his answer wasn't too positive. So I need you to raise the festive spirits, John.
I am feeling pretty festive. I'm already away at a wee holiday home in Fife, so I'm away with my partner's family, and we're all kind of joining up today. So that's why it's very blue behind me, Hamish. Don't know if you've
I
noticed that.
know. Come on, John. Come on.
Terrible.
Are you a Christmas fan generally?
I am. I do enjoy Christmas. I enjoy getting together with family. Enjoy all the Christmas meal, Boxing Day. I love it all. Over the last few years, obviously been working a lot over Christmas, and it doesn't
Yeah.
change this year. Full coverage on the Celtic Way. A wee plug for you there. Um, but yeah, no, we're all set. I'm going to have a good week away, a few nights away from the humdrum usual. So I'm looking forward to it.
Good stuff. How are we, everyone? Lovely to have you with us. We appreciate your support every day. Especially, I always think, John, when we get to the kind of bank holidays and all that stuff, and people still want to tune in and watch us talk about Celtic. And there's things to talk about as well. Bit of a report last night we can discuss. Uh, Bit on Kyogo. I think more so on incomings is probably the kind of really interesting stuff we can discuss because it's only a week pretty much until the window opens. We've got a bit of chat about Dundee United and we've got a game in a couple of days as well. So it's all happening.
Yeah, it is. It's busy. It's busy on and off the pitch. But I know the January transfer window can be a weird one. Sometimes it's very quiet. Sometimes it's a bit of a transitional one. Sometimes it's pretty busy. This seems to be, by the reports ramping up, that it might be pretty busy January, both in and out of the club. A little bit of transition in the team, a few new faces that'll potentially be key players. So yeah, there's lots to crack on with. You know, Brendan Rodgers, Michael Nixon, Dermot Desmond had that meeting last week in Dublin.
Yeah.
So hopefully they've got all their ducks in a row and there's no dragging of heels on any deals, and we get our business done nice and early, get replacements in for anyone who leaves, and kick on into what is a pretty big second half of the season.
Business done nice and early. You are aware it's Celtic
Of
Football Club
course.
that we support. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you asked if I'm feeling festive. Festive brings lots of optimism for lots of people, so I'll take that angle on it.
Okay, I'm seeing comments about Jota already. We might come on to that because it's always interesting. Let's tackle the Kyogo stuff
Yeah.
first, everyone. I know some of you might be up early. So, report late last night, Stephen McGowan saying that Kyogo is being targeted by the MLS side Atlanta United, managed by Ronnie Dyler.
Mm.
We had Georgios Yakimakis go there a couple of years ago, and the chat is basically in a nutshell, they're looking for a bit of a kind of marquee signing, marquee striker signing. They have a couple of designated player slots left, and they're apparently keen on Kyogo. They were apparently keen on Kyogo in the summer. We're ready to pay 10 million for him, but Celtic were not keen to sell at that stage. I mean, the reason I bring it up early is that it's a talking point to an extent. Celtic aren't selling Kyogo in January though, unless a bid much larger, probably double 10 million comes in for him.
Yeah, I mean, for this, I kind of alluded to it there, but it's all about who you've got lined up as a replacement. If Celtic have someone ready to go that they're wanting to invest a future into, then I can see a logic behind it, even in the 10 to 15 million pound range. I think if you're just asking me if that offer comes in for Kyogo and we should accept it and then look to move on in reaction to that, then I don't think that's a good idea at all. Celtic are in a position, have the luxury where they don't need to be so reactive in the market. They can theoretically plan ahead and ensure that they have succession plans in place. Now, Kyogo's 30 next month.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking for what potentially might be the last big offer for him, between 10 and 50 million pounds, and you've got someone lined up that you feel like can take Celtic forward for the next 3 or 4 years, then there's conversations to be had. Of course there is. But just outright, £10 million should be accepted for Kyogo and then be scrambling around looking for someone to come in and be a starter, then no, that's absolutely not the approach we should take. And that's probably why Celtic are apparently have a pretty, cold response to all this transfer speculation. There's also another factor, Hamish, just to bring you in as well, that maybe Kyogo fancies a new challenge, and that is something you have to consider. You don't want to keep an unhappy player around. You don't want Kyogo's motivation to dip. So we'll just see how it all plays out. But how are you feeling about it? You're kind of skeptical of this, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, like we didn't want to sell him in the summer.
Yeah.
Has the situation changed from the summer? Not for
Mm.
me. I mean, there's maybe an argument that you would look at. I think the third striker thing's quite interesting. What kind of player are we looking at as being that third choice? If it's someone who could eventually become a first choice Celtic striker, then maybe there's an argument of you sign them and then maybe Kyogo moves on at the end of the season potentially. Um, yeah, it's interesting because does Kyogo want Celtic to be his club, the club that he's known for most, or does he want a shot at a top five league? And you would say potentially he would, without knowing for sure. He's not grown up a Celtic fan, and he might at some stage want to move on and play in a top five league. I just think the Kyogo we're seeing at the moment is a long way from the top Kyogo, and I expect him to get back to the top Kyogo relatively soon. I've seen people saying, Kyogo's not been the same since Brendan Rodgers has come in. I remember Kyogo doing a lot of really good things over the last couple of years, and I don't really have any doubts that he won't get back to that
Yeah.
level.
I think, he scored 20 goals in his first season. He had that a mega season in the
Yeah,
second season, 34 goals, I
34.
think it was, and he scored 19 last season. So you're looking for Kyogo around 20 goals a season. He's got 8 so far this season. He's probably going to get up to around 20 again. So I think it's
Yeah,
par for the course. Kyogo does miss chances. I don't think you can really get away from that. But do I think
he's
Kyogo
always missed
yeah,
chances.
he's always done that. He's always done that. That's not a new thing. But I think Kyogo improves us. I think we're stronger with Kyogo in the team, and I know there definitely he's not been at his best in recent. But I don't think it's like we don't need to worry about the Kyogo question going forward long term. In the short term, it might be you might give Ida a game, you might see if that gets a reaction out of Kyogo. The short term there are decisions to
Yeah.
make, but over the long term, Kyogo's a great Celtic player and is good for us. So you don't just sell that outright without having the right replacement for me. And so it's really as simple as that. But we don't know what the club are working on behind the scenes in terms of they might have a player that they see that they go, right, this could be our guy for the next 3 or 4 years. And then it starts to make sense about moving him on because he's turning 30. You're getting a bid maybe near £15 million. That all starts to make sense for me.
Has it ever been about the money with Kyogo, though? That's the only thing. I
Yeah.
know business makes sense, but I think since the minute Kyogo signed, he's never been a player I've looked at and thought, we'll
No,
sell him on and make money. He's always
that's
just been
true.
a moments player, a player who Kyogo, regardless of what happens from here, Kyogo will be remembered as one of the best strikers of the 21st century, without doubt. The moment he's given us, and I truly believe there's much more to come. Brown Warrior saying he's on the decline. Hamish, time you faced up to it. Fair enough, but it's such a divisive issue, Kyogo, at the moment, because Welsh Paul, and I know Welsh Paul's a huge defender of Kyogo, saying he's not the top Kyogo because no one feeds him the ball. So it's a difficult one. He's a weird one at the moment because I feel like the things you'd say to criticise Kyogo at the moment, he's not involved in the game. He's never involved in the game, even at the
No.
peak Kyogo, but he was scoring goals. I just don't know quite what's happening with him right now.
You know what it is? You know why he's a lightning rod right now? Because he both represents Celtic's lackluster performances of late and represents the potential of what Celtic can be. So we know how good Kyogo can be,
Yeah.
and we know that we're in, the performance aren't, we're just kind of grinding our way through some games right now. So he kind of represents both sides for that, and he typifies it. So people are just latching onto it. That's the big issue. But for me, I've got no concerns if Kyogo stays at Celtic. I've got no concerns about what he can produce for us in the second half of the season. There shouldn't be any doubts about that because he's a fantastic player.
I do agree though that I want Adamida in Boxing Day. I'm really liking Adamida. I know he's not done anything spectacular in recent weeks, but I just think he's kind of quietly coming onto a game. I thought that layoff for Kyogo on Sunday was really good. I thought he was really good when he came on in the cup final. I want to see him start, and I want the challenge put down to Adamida. Get yourself in that team for Ibrox. There you go. There's a couple of games potentially to go and do it because I think we need something a wee bit different at the moment, just something to spark people into life. Any other thoughts, or can we move on?
just on either. Like I think he's really impressive as an impact substitute on occasion, but I'm really hoping that he can start showing that from the start of matches. I agree. Like I've always been more impressed with him coming off the bench than him starting matches. And I want him to reverse that thinking in all of our minds. I want him to be a player who we can rely upon from the start of matches.
Glasgow Harley Rider saying Ida on them on the second. Who starts for you right now? I know your answer. I don't know why I'm even asking.
I would go as it stands, Kyogo for me.
Right, but Ida can work his way in with a couple of
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, right. Incoming stuff I think is quite interesting. We know that Brendan Rodgers had a transfer meeting with Dermot Desmond and Michael Nicholson in Dublin last week. We know that because Brendan Rodgers spoke about that at his press conference before the Dundee United game. The chat is that a left winger is a priority signing next month. I think, and I heard this on, I think, the Celtic Exchange podcast, they were saying that I think there was a private sit down with the manager last week and he let slip, basically was pretty forthright in saying, I want to sign a winger. So I think we can pretty much have it as, that Celtic are going to sign a left winger or certainly attempt to sign a left winger. The report also says we want to secure Kieran Tierney for a return to Celtic, regardless of whether Greg Taylor signs a new deal or not. As always, this is paper talk to an extent, John. It's come from somewhere, but left winger, left back seems to be the big chat at the moment.
Left winger seems to have been one that was carried over from the summer. I remember towards the end of the summer transfer window, there was a lot of reports, a lot of speculation that Celtic were looking for another attacker of some sort, perhaps a more versatile one who can play not just on the left but potentially through the middle or on the right as well. And I think it makes sense because Luis Palma's not doing it. He's not. Yeah. I don't think he's going to come back at this point. I know this time last year I was all about the Luis Palma redemption because I thought he was pretty good in those first 6 months that he had, but I don't think he's coming back from where he is. I think that was quite evident again on Sunday, and so if he's leaving, then we need someone in just in terms of bodies. But you're looking for a player of real quality that can probably enhance the starting 11 if possible, or at least provide a viable alternative to Daizen Maeda. We know what Daizen Maeda's strengths are. We know what he offers. We know the slight weaknesses he has. So if we can have another winger who offers something different, who can play in different matches or be that rotation option, because right now, beyond Daizen Maeda, I'm not really trusting anyone coming in on that left side, and I think that's probably what Rodgers is thinking as well. So we need a strong player in there who can really enhance us. Hopefully, the person who scouted Nicholas Kuhn is on the search for a left winger, because that was a fantastic signing last January. I know it took a slow burner, but if we can bring in another quality winger on that left side, I think it will really, really take us on a bit.
Because we love Daizen Maeda. Like, you won't find a Celtic fan who doesn't love him. But as you say, you know what his strengths are, and his strengths aren't being creative. You wouldn't say Daizen Maeda's creative in any way. He's a player who thrives off moments. He thrives off chaos, anarchy, whatever. And as I say, we love him for it. But I think it's almost as simple as saying finding a left-sided Nicholas Kuhn would be huge for us. Is there one that we know a lot about, though, John? Because the situation is, there's been nothing concrete linking us with Jota. I think the story basically is that a new manager has come in at Rennes, where Jota's playing, and the new manager doesn't seem to fancy Jota. Jota's not starting games. He's not started a single game under the new manager, Jorge Sampaoli. And the chat is that he may be allowed to leave in January. So if Jota's available, do you drop your plans with Balak Wisha, with anyone else, and do you just say, back you come?
If someone's offering Jota to me, I'm obviously taking him. Jota's post-Celtic career has been, it must be frustrating for him, but it's been a little bit sad for us to watch as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes players and clubs just fit, don't they? Like, Jota was the perfect fit for Celtic at that time. The only reason he left is because it was ridiculous money from the Saudi league. Like, it was silly stuff.
Yeah. It's a shame in many ways, isn't it?
Yeah. And it kind of, I think it has halted his career trajectory. I think if he'd stayed at Celtic for another season, he probably would have got a move to England or somewhere, or maybe a better European side. Like, I could have seen that in his future. It didn't pan out that way. I don't know the realities of Jota coming back. I don't know what's involved with that. I don't know what's involved in terms of wages and all that kind of stuff. If it's viable, then obviously Celtic should be pursuing it. I'm sure if it is viable, Celtic are considering it. He's such a special player. He's such a special talent. And like I said, he suits Celtic in the way that Ange suited Celtic or Brendan Rodgers suited Celtic right now. There's something. There's a synergy there. Jota plays with his passion. He thrives off the love of the support, and he was just a sensation here. And I would love to see him back, obviously, if it's viable in any sort of way.
Yeah, obviously there's loads of different parts of this. You know, we Jota want to return back to a league like Scottish football. Clearly, Celtic aren't the issue here. It would be playing in Scotland. Does he want to, chances are at one of the top leagues, and we'd probably all agree he's good enough to play in those leagues. It is interesting how it's not quite worked out for him in recent years because, personally, he's, one of the best wingers I've ever seen at Celtic. And it's a good point you make. Without the Saudi Arabian interest, you would have expected him to probably move on to Spain or England and really play at a good level in one of those leagues. So maybe it was just the wrong move for his career at that stage. And clearly they had issues with player registration and all that stuff that just seemed a bit untidy. I'd love to see him back. I know Brendan Rodgers hasn't worked with him. But if he was keen to come back, the transfer fee I don't think would be a crazy one because I think Rennes paid something like $6 million for him in the summer. I'd love for it to be one that Celtic pursue because I think everything would kind of point towards him being a success back with us and it would really give everyone a boost. Jota, Kieran Tierney behind him would be quite interesting, wouldn't it?
Stream stuff. I'm not usually one of those people who are totally into rekindling something that was there before. But I think they're a quality of player who are still, they're not past it, is what I'm saying. They're not at the end of their career. These are still players who are really good players who play for good, strong clubs in Europe, and the prospect of bringing them back is quite exciting for me, even though I'm not really into these reunions. It's not like I don't think they've really fallen from grace. The Jota thing has, like you said, there's been lots of complications there. So I'm into it. If Celtic can pull that out of the bag this January, I think everyone would be pretty happy.
Do you think Brendan Rodgers thinks like that? Like, would he? Do you think, knowing what he's like, would he look at a player? Clearly, I try to work out how it would work in my mind, but I'm guessing scouts at Celtic would maybe be saying to him, "By the way, Jota, this is his situation. He was great here." Would Brendan Rodgers look at that and say he was pretty good here? I'd love to work with him, or would he be like, "Nah, we've been scouting this guy previously, Balak Wisha, for example. I think he'll do good. We don't go for a player like that who's just been here previously. We'll go for the guy we've scouted." It's an interesting one because we as fans obviously know what Jota was all about.
And I'm sure Brendan Rodgers, when he came back, he was very kind of upfront with the fact that he'd been following the team pretty closely for quite a long time. So he's obviously well aware of what Jota brings. I don't think he'd do it just. I mean, obviously, he would look at every player, look at their profile, look at their attributes that they can offer his system. I think Jota fits into it pretty well. He's a ball carrying winger. He's creative. He has that kind of X factor that Brendan Rodgers is looking for in that area. There's no barrier to me. The only barrier is obviously his willingness to come back, and then the financial stuff. Everything else makes sense in terms of his talent and the kind of player he is. I think he slots perfectly right back into this team.
Okay, Big Dom saying Jota has pace, Palma doesn't. Hazel Jota now knows the grass isn't always greener, taken back in a heartbeat. Big Dom, similar note, saying Jota has made big money at the expense of happiness. He should come back to paradise. Charlie, we'd seriously miss Maida's defensive work, especially in Europe. Be careful what you wish for. I don't think anyone's selling Dies and Maida here. I mean, Maida, you could argue, is one of our most important players in Europe. I think the big thing is here having another option that the manager trusts, regardless of if it's Jota or anyone else. We need another option who the manager trusts, like he trusts James Forrest with Kuhn. Those two can come in and out. You can bring Kuhn out the team. If James Forrest's fit right now, I guarantee we get a better performance at Tannadice. The issue with me is when Maida doesn't play and Forrest isn't available, it's a hell of a downgrade.
Yeah, I agree. We definitely need another left wing option, and yeah, it's good that the club are looking at that for me.
Matthias Boguts, was a boy is saying he was kind of left-sided, wasn't he, as well? So
Yeah,
these are all
he was
names
one
that
of those
might come
ones I
up.
was looking at who was maybe that versatile option who could play in a couple of the positions in attack. So potentially one to watch because by all accounts Celtic were pretty interested in him. So why
Yeah.
not again?
Chat about Stephen Welsh moving out as well in that piece earlier. I think KV Mechelen in Belgium were mentioned there. I thought Welsh was fine on Saturday. I thought Stephen Welsh
Yeah.
had a pretty good game, but it'd be kind of nice to see him going out and furthering his career. I was thinking though, if he was to move on and Naropsky was to move on, you'd only have
need
3
4.
centre backs.
Yeah, you need 4. So it's either Welsh or Narotse. For me, you can't get rid of them both unless we've got designs to bring in another. But you definitely need 4 there. I know Dane Murray's getting recalled from his loan as well. So
Yeah.
could he be a 4th
What's the story
option?
there? Has he done quite well on loan?
Yeah, I think so. And it was just important for him to get games because he's had so many debilitating injuries, different injuries that have kept him out for years, like a year stretch at a time. So it was good to see him get back playing. I don't know if he's a viable 4th option. Only Rodgers will know that based on the reports that he has. But if Welsh and Norwich go, then obviously he's a contender. If that might be the plan.
Naropsky's just an interesting one because I think we all had quite high hopes when he signed, and I'm still to be convinced that he's not a good player. I'm still to be convinced that he is good and would fit as well, but it's a strange one because signed from Legia, I think quite a decent profile. It was a signing I was quite excited about, but I think Brendan Rodgers maybe just doesn't fancy him.
Yeah, and early on it became quite apparent to myself for Lager Bielke just wasn't it. Like I just didn't feel like he was ever going to have it. I never got that feeling off Narotsky. So if he can, but there's no real evidence. There's nothing really tangible there. But the gut feeling was that he could be a pretty good player for us. So, but obviously he's there every day in training. If he was pushing for a spot in that team, he would be in the team, and he's nowhere near it. It seems like.
Yeah, he might be one to move on. Okay, we've not really had your thoughts on Sunday, so what were you thinking? A bit of a drab match.
Drab match. I actually thought we did all right in that first half. I thought we were pretty sharp in possession and moving it about nicely and really pinning United back a fair bit. But that's just that. It was just the lack of creativity on the day, and then the conditions worsened, and it just never looked. We were building towards that goal that we've seen us get late on in quite a lot of these games where it is a bit of a grind, but it just never quite pulled off. And it was just one of those ones that we've seen a million times at Celtic, and I understand, people get a bit pent up when there's a draw, there's drop points, and it's understandable because Celtic are good enough to win all of these matches. And on the day, it was a pretty poor performance, to be frank with you. I don't know if it's indicative of a lot like a trend or whether we've got to be a little bit wary about the games coming up. I don't think that is the case. I think it was just one of those sets of circumstances where there's a few players out. It's difficult conditions. United are a pretty good organised team this year under Goodwin when they want to be, and it was just the combination of that. And we weren't good. We weren't good. There's no doubt about it. But I don't think I'm worried about dropping points on Boxing Day or beyond or anything like that. I think Celtic will get themselves together. But it's undeniable. But the form over the last few weeks has been nowhere near what it was in the start of the season. So we need to see Celtic getting back to that, and it's especially important with the derby coming up and everything. So I'm not. There's no major alarm bells for me. It was a bad day, and Celtic can be better and probably will be better in the coming matches.
Yeah, because the performances haven't been as good. You take the last 3 matches, and I would say none of those performances were particularly good. And it's a difficult one because I think you look at the individual games, and there always has to be a reason for why the performance haven't hit that level, and people can come up with loads of different reasons. Various players missing. Is it just that sometimes naturally the performance levels dip over the course of a season. And I know we always look at this December period and, things are brought up about the pitches and stuff like that. And I don't actually think the pitches are a big excuse, because I thought the pitch was kind of all right on Sunday. I know the conditions weren't particularly good, but maybe it's just that natural kind of moment you have midway through the season where the levels dip and maybe certain things go against you, and maybe you get worked out to a certain extent. But I don't think it's a case of like Scottish clubs or even other clubs having worked Celtic's game style out and that's us like completely done. I think we're going to be absolutely fine, and I don't necessarily think we're going to see a 5-0 on Boxing Day. Like, I think it might be kind of stuffy again. It might be like 1-0, 2-0, something like that. But I just think it's a case of the team having to work through this. It's basically win your next couple of games and avoid defeat at Ibrox. We obviously want to win that game, but avoid defeat. Come out of that Ibrox game 9 points clear, and then I think everyone settles down. I'll be honest. I think a lot of the kind of worry comes from Ibrox and comes from playing your biggest rivals away from home and knowing how close that cup final was. And, if they beat us there, it suddenly goes down to 6 points and you've gone from this position of being so far clear and Rangers away in the distance, not even second in the league, third in the league, to suddenly being in a bit of a title fight. So I'm guessing that's kind of the general frustration. I just think generally we're in a really good place. And even if the worst case is to happen at Ibrox, I just still back this team to be able to get it right and go and win the league.
Evidence suggests that Celtic will be okay. I can't think of going through any, I think the first half of last season was not quite there in terms of being at the standards we've come to expect over Brendan Rodgers. As we've mentioned many times since the defeat to Hearts at Tynecastle, Celtic have been incredible. And I think it's crucial that the context is we've only dropped points twice in the league this season, 2 draws, 14 wins from 16 matches. Like, that's just, everyone just needs to keep the heat a wee bit. And in my opinion, everyone just needs to keep it level, because the evidence suggests that Celtic are much stronger than every other team in this league, and you would expect that to continue. I don't think there are massive signs of regression in Celtic. I think it's just, there's going to be these matches where you're just not quite at your best. More often than not, Celtic have found a way to win even when they're not at the best, and it just didn't quite come off against United. We did have the chances were there. So it's just crucial that the players are sharp enough and switched on enough that they do take those chances in those moments, because Kyogo should have scored, arguably Engel should have scored. I know it came to him quite quickly into his feet, but he perhaps should have lifted it, or the keeper made a good save. So there was 2 or 3 moments where Celtic could have got that goal in that second half, and it was building to that moment. And it's just, it just didn't come off, and that's going to happen.
Right, a few comments before we go. My ball, for me, it's important that we start to build momentum for the game against Young Boys. We're in this weird period where the Champions League's just kind of not a factor at the moment, because we've got this big gap, and it's just, I think it's like 7 or 8 league games in a row, isn't it? But we're not a million miles away from the Young Boys game. And again, that's unusual because you're not used to having a January Champions League match. But that's going to be a huge night, isn't it? I mean, that's going to be a massive night.
And these European games have been the touchstone for the sport throughout the season. I don't think you can really get away from that. That's been the big the drivers of excitement has been Celtic's performances in Europe and the potential of qualifying for the knockout. So it's only natural that people are already looking ahead to that. There's just so much business and work to get done before that point that I can't, never mind the Celtic players taking it one game at a time. I can't see that far into the future, even myself. So we'll get through the next few games. The derby is the big one on the horizon, obviously, but there's work to do even before that point too. So Celtic need to just keep picking up points and make sure that keep Rangers at touching distance. That's all it's really about. That Young Boys game is so big, though. So big. It's like, win that and you're through in Europe. It's just so huge for the club.
It's just a brilliant season. Like, I'm enjoying it so much. Genuinely, like the league. I just think we've had so many really good games so far this season. I know Scottish football has its detractors, but even like Sunday's game, which wasn't a great game, I just love watching Celtic in these matches. And obviously the European stuff is kind of, as you say, it's the stuff that gets us really excited. Smell the gloves, wondering about Kuhn's knee. I'm guessing we've not had any update.
So there hasn't been an update, and I don't think there will be unless it comes via Celtic TV. There's no Brendan
Yeah.
Rodgers press conference today. At Christmas time, they do the press conference for the next game after the previous game. So,
Right.
I think there'll be embargoed comments from what Rodgers said after the Dundee United game that aren't out yet. But
You won't know
obviously
anything at
we
that
won't know
stage.
anything
Yeah.
because he's getting assessed early this week. So we're not going to really know until the
Okay.
team announcement, unless Celtic TV get an interview with the manager, then he gives us an update. But that's the state. So I think the status was Kuhn's knee. He felt it in training the day
Saturday.
before, and he just didn't take a risk with it. But I think Roger said he was hopeful that he was perhaps be available for the Boxing Day game. I don't think he's going to be at long term. So
Right.
I think the word hopeful was used, but you never know with these things, and he was to be assessed. Alistair Johnston, I think, is in a similar boat. It's just he has a hip issue, and he was played through pain to play in the cup final. Like, as we noted, nobody was. Everybody could see, that he was playing through an injury in that game, so that was the case. I think Cameron Carter-Vickers and Austin Trusty was just illness, so they should be back, all going well. So I think that's the status. But like I say, I don't think we'll really know until the team announcement.
Should be a bit of a stronger team. Hopefully, it'll be good to get Carter Vickers and Trusty back. It's going to be. I think it's going to be a tough game. Motherwell have a kind of team that can punish you. They've got a few pretty good players. I mean, Lennon Miller's the one people talk about, but a player you can't afford to give too much time to. So, looking forward to it. Hopefully, the team can get back to winning ways. I'm guessing there'll be loads of coverage in the lead up to the game, even though tomorrow's Christmas.
Yeah, tomorrow's Christmas. So Tony and Ryan have recorded a Christmas special for Christmas Day. So if you're sitting there bored tomorrow, you're one of those people who doesn't really enjoy Christmas, then get yourself on the Celtic Way YouTube channel. I think they're doing a review of the year. I believe there was some rumours that Ryan was going to be wearing a Mad Christmas jumper. I don't know if that panned out. But tune in to see how bad that one is. And then on the website, we've got loads of stuff. We had Cal McGregor interview. I think we've got stuff from the manager and Paulo Bernardo. We've got a wee reviews of the year, like Brendan Rodgers quotes. We've got, grading all the summer signings so far. That's going out tomorrow as well ahead. So we've been working hard to get stuff up regular for people who like to check the website on a daily basis. And that won't stop. We'll have loads of stuff going out over the next couple of days. And then obviously myself and Ryan are back for Boxing Day with full coverage of the game with live streams and written stuff on the website. So we're all over it.
Amazing. Well, I'll bid farewell for now, everyone. I think I'm back on Friday to look back on the Boxing Day game. But as John says, the coverage will continue on the Celtic Way. And I hope you all have a lovely day today and more so tomorrow. Enjoy your time with family, friends, etc. And hopefully you can get a big win on Boxing Day as well. Thanks, everyone. Much appreciated. I'll chat to you very soon.